guys, welcome to another episode of our show. Today my guest is John Meloche, and John is a CEO and founder at MeloTel. John,
MeloTel.
MeloTel, sorry.
MeloTel, yeah.
Okay, thanks for your time, John, and welcome to the call today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate you having me on, and I've seen your shows and interested to see where this goes.
So tell us a little bit about MeloTel. What do you guys do, and what is it all about?
MeloTel is a telecommunications provider for small to medium-sized businesses. We specialize in small business office telephone services in the cloud. So rather than on-premise systems, we provide a hosted PBX, and we service all of Canada. It's a very intelligent system, so different than traditional systems. We provide integratability to CRMs, and we're very popular in the call center business.
I see. So what are the top problems that, when people come to you or business leaders come to you trying to solve? What is it a communication problem you're trying to solve? Or is it simply just, the telephony system, problem you're trying to solve? What is the underlying problem they outline when they try to come to you, and what are you trying to help them with?
Most of our customers that come to us are leaving legacy telephone systems that are becoming end of life. Some of the old Nortel systems that they've been using for years and have owned sit in their office, and as they break, it's not as easy to find parts and replacement for them anymore. So at the time that they start looking for solutions, they stumble on sort of a smarter technology, and that's what we do. We specialize in a hosted solution rather than on-premise. There are a lot of advantages to the traditional technology. So the other thing is too, that they're looking for somebody that will hold their hand through the process rather than, expect them to be the expert in telephone service. Most of the people that come to us are coming from a system where they've either had to hire a tech to come out and just change voicemail passwords, or it's so analog that they don't they don't get all the ins and outs of the telephone business. So they come to us for answers, best ways approach to be able to build their system, how to migrate, and typically people are coming to us when they want to make that sort of next step into the technology of telephone service.
So this is going to be one of the critical, service during this COVID time, right? And we talk about impact of COVID, and when everything shuts down, technology was the only thing moving people forward. What do you saw the impact on your side of things, and how did you help a client? What do they have to do if they're already in the cloud? I take it that they're well positioned to work from home, or either working from home or out of the location, right? What are your thoughts on it? What do you say what did you see the biggest impact in your space?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, because COVID hit us from every single angle. Not only did it impact our business by having to close our office and send our employees to work from home, and luckily we have the technology to be able to make that fairly easy transition. But for many of our customers, it was sort of a blessing in disguise for them that they were with our service, because what we did for our own business, it made it very easy to be able to do for their business as well. Setting up with fully cloud-based solutions, using their cell phones to be able to make and receive calls, keeping them or allowing them to be able to keep their doors open, as well with so many people working from home and making adjustments to doing online ordering and telephone ordering rather than in store. It increased the capacity requirements for many business customers that we have. So, retail shops that before used to just welcome customers coming into their shop, now moving online, having to deal with customer service, customer support in an environment where they can't have people all in the same room like they used to. They would come to us for solutions, being able to distribute their staff to be able to work from home, still be able to take those calls, facilitate their systems, and continue to operate. And many of our customers that had the service already, for us it was just mainly a point and a click type of solution. There was a big influx of people interested in the technology and sales, but there was also unfortunately a very big downfall in many of our very long-standing customers. The first 3 months of the pandemic were devastating, to be honest with you. It was, on one hand, we were seeing growth in sales from people in demand of the technology, but on the other hand, we were seeing customers that we've had for 10 years, unfortunately have to modify or even cancel their service altogether because they were going out of business. So it was quite difficult. And that's why I say we were getting it from all spectrums, all side of it, because we were dealing with it for our own business. We were dealing with it for the sales side. We were dealing with it for the, retention side as well.
Mm-hmm. Did you see some challenges in that space where people going home, they're working from home? In office, they have a very decent bandwidth. We have a good internet setup at home. They may not have that speed of internet. There could be some other issues when you're routing the calls here and there, or could be training issue that people haven't been trained properly to work in an office. Now they're going home and they gotta operate the equipment a little differently. Did you see any changes or challenges in this space, or any other major challenges you can talk about that you saw that we didn't anticipate that going into COVID?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when everybody first went home, and I'm sure this was right across the board, bandwidth utilization throughout all the major internet service providers was through the roof. And it was, they totally unexpected it and had to recover from bandwidth capacity issues. So there were many customers that I know of that had their employees working from home and were wondering, hey, why is my internet slow? Why is my, my phone experiencing problems? And it was just an overcapacity of all these people, now watching Netflix and being at home all the time and doing Zoom meetings and having phone calls and using the internet a lot more than what they expected to. The other challenging situation that many people had was bringing their hardware home, because I would say probably 70% of our customers use what's called power over Ethernet for their telephones. Yeah. So we had to quickly facilitate a number of customers with an actual power supply for their devices, which drew up the demand for devices, power supplies for devices. And, we sold out in like a week of all of these power supplies, and then they were back ordered, and it was a scramble to be able to get people the power supplies that they needed to be able to function at home. The last technical issue that we faced as well was, most home networks aren't ideally set up to be able to support a high quality phone call. Mm-hmm. So we faced the challenges of, working with each individual user, working at home to try and get them set up properly. And that was certainly one of our biggest challenges. Because without getting too technical, most homes have a modem router combo, which can be problematic for a VoIP system, because you're sharing bandwidth with all the other aspects of the service that are being used there. The kids doing remote learning, the computer system for the new home workers, and then the phone service. And the biggest symptom of any problem that you have with your internet service is always the phone. So we were the go-to guys. And ultimately became sort of a pseudo technical support for many of our customers.
Yeah. Well, especially in an era that before COVID, video call was usually separate than audio calls. It's a nice to have kind of video call was nice to have it, right? But all of a sudden we jumped on a Zoom. Team meetings became so popular. Definitely adds a lot more impact on that. Where you saw the impact on, combining video and audio calls together in these channels, did that cause any issues for in your space?
No, well, I mean, it's hard to say because we don't specialize in video communication specifically. It's more call center based and telecommunications based. So Zoom was like a huge win for many businesses. But ironically too, and if you look back a little bit before COVID hit, Zoom actually went through a big issue with security, with Zoom meetings always being hacked and people getting into Zoom meetings, and there were big concerns about it. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and now it's like the most popular video communication platform on the planet.
Yeah.
But from an integration ability type of thing, what I found that it was a complementary service. Most businesses are still going to use their phone to make primary telephone communications, but they're also going to use Zoom for maybe their presentations that they would otherwise do face to face, and also for their team meetings. But there are lots of alternatives to Zoom as well, between Microsoft Teams and Slack. Zoom just happened to come to the forefront because it was just so easy.
Yeah, it's we, especially in companies where they have a sales and marketing department, these departments, Zoom was the only way to keep moving business forward. And Microsoft made so much investment in Teams as well. The video calling becomes so popular. Good stuff. So, do you guys do any integration with the Zoom or Teams, John? How do you guys handle some of that stuff?
So we don't have specifically integration with Zoom, but we do have integration to Teams. So that's one option. But primarily, the type of service that we provide is the ability for businesses to integrate their own systems. So rather than specifically integrating just to Teams or to Slack or to Zoom, is that many customers use CRM applications that are proprietary, whether it be, they could use Salesforce, but they may also have their own system that they built in-house. So we focus on integrations with those type of platforms, which are generally used by small to medium-sized enterprises that have very niche products and services the way that they operate. Zoom is one thing that's pretty difficult to integrate with because they're a whole solution. Whereas with Teams, it's a little bit different. They want to be able to do click to call and make calls on their telephone service while still having it connected to their primary phone service. So we do offer that solution.
Very interesting. Yeah, it gives a little bit more control over as well. What do you want to allow in a business, what you're not going to allow, gives you a lot more control compared to if using a Zoom. Interesting. One of the issues I always see in a business is the training aspect of it. We can set up all that, top of the line phone system, or we can give them all the bells and whistles. But if nobody knows how to use it, as good as, a couple of the decent features. How do you guys approach the training? Do you guys help out businesses in that area as well? Or how do you help people who are looking to learn some more stuff?
So that's a good question, because it is one of the challenges with this type of service, is being able to make sure that the users are educated how to use their devices and what the capabilities of the service really are. Like most people, when they inquire about a service, they really only just scratch the surface about what the real capacity of the system can do for them. So what we've done to help combat that is we've created a wiki resource where customers can go and get all kinds of information about our platform, how to perform specific functions. We try and blog and talk about our products and services all the time. We're very active on social media to talk about updates and features and how to do this and how to do that. As well, we have a YouTube channel where we provide very instructional videos on how to use the specific devices that we offer. Luckily, we really only offer one brand, Polycom. So it makes it fairly easy for us to be very focused on training and helping people understand how to use the devices. Two other things that we offer as well is typically pre-COVID, if there was a requirement to do a team training session, we would actually come on site and go through a walkthrough and show people, how to do certain aspects of it. Typically, it's most popular with receptionists, how to transfer calls, how to park calls, and so on. Lastly, we offer a white glove approach through telephone technical support. So if somebody has a requirement of how to use a specific feature or a function, they want to know what features are, what's possible with the system, we will literally spend as much time as necessary to make sure that they understand what the full scope of what they have is. It's one thing to subscribe to a service, it's another to use it to its full capacity. Like we have some customers that simply use the service for just forwarding to their cell phone. And then we have other customers that are fully integrated to the telephone platform, integrations to Slack and Teams and to their browser for click to call and to our telemarketing platform, as well as integration for credit card payment through their IVR. So these are all the features that are available to somebody with a subscription, but they often don't realize what's capable until we bring it up and mention it to them. So that's why we're pretty active on social media.
So let's start with this IVR side of things. You just mentioned that, during the time of COVID, did they get was there a more demand for automated the menu systems? And listen, how much can I automate without having people involved in that? Did you see any increase in the demand for this IVR kind of more advanced kind of features? Can we do this on a phone? Can we do this on a phone? How could we simplify some of the business process and run it through the IVR?
Yeah. So definitely with the IVR is a godsend when it comes to being able to interconnect people from different locations. And there certainly was an increase in demand in people that wanted to add an IVR to their service, where otherwise they had calls that came directly into their receptionist. In this case, we wanted to interrupt the call with an automated system that allowed the caller to be able to make their own directions. So in some scenarios, many places were able to still have the receptionist working from home, where she could still do the transferring of the calls, and customers were really none the wiser. But in the scenario where they needed to interrupt that IV or put the IVR in place, we would fully blow it out for them and make it so that there are lots of options and different capabilities in the system, and providing more information. Many customers needed to provide announcements. Restaurants, for say, one local restaurant to me, Cora's Restaurant, they had to include in their IVR specific details about not only when their open hours are, about the COVID restrictions. So they wanted to announce to callers, before you come in, make sure that you're wearing your mask. These are our requirements, only 4 people per table, etc. And these are things that needed to be updated all the time as the COVID restrictions evolved over time. So IVR is certainly a big demand, as well as queues. A call queue is a holding pattern for callers where it tries multiple people, and those became in demand too, because now you don't have just one person or a group of people near a phone. You've got multiple people having their own phone working in different locations. So being able to route and distribute those calls was really critical.
And also the marketing opportunities or communication opportunities in those calls as well, right? So if you're running a company and you want to make people aware of certain product and services, you could use that to deliver those commercials or whatever during that time, right? So it opens up a little bit more opportunities for your sales and marketing department, whatever they want to do.
Right. And, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I wouldn't say I forgot about it, but during COVID, we decided to launch a number of products and services that we hadn't otherwise offered. And professional voice greetings and on-hold messaging was one of those. The reason being is because previously we never did it. Like, we had the ability to do it, but we didn't promote it as a service that we did. We just did it as a courtesy for customers. But what we found is that generally there's a big market for that. Like, people really appreciate when you call up and you're on hold for sales and you're hearing that background music with, some audible messages about, a special promo that's happening, or don't forget to ask about this, or reminders about specific parts of the business. So it was definitely a win for sure.
Yeah, if you're running a business, you can play music, you can play some, news channel. But why do you want to do that? Why not just run make people aware of other part of your business, what they're not telling you about? That's a win-win to me. That's another opportunities we can capture on.
Yeah, it definitely was a hit.
I see. What other innovations, even moving forward, it looks like we're reopening economy. Where do you see that bigger innovations coming into your space? Any new technologies, any new ways of doing these things or communicating with the people? Where do you see the innovations coming in your space?
Wow, that's a tough question, because it's basically predicting the future, which I've always wanted to be able to do. But it's tough to say, to be honest. I think that one of the biggest things about the particular industry that I'm involved in right now is not necessarily about building for the future. It's about bringing people to the present, because quite frankly, the technology that is offered right now is light years beyond what most businesses actually have available to them in their business. And our biggest challenge has been actually educating people about what the real features and capabilities of a hosted PBX can actually be. Most people don't realize that you don't need a telephone number for every line that you have in your business, or a rollover service. Or the common question is we get, how many lines do I get? Well, with a hosted PBX, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And I think that although we're advancing in our technology and our software building for telemarketing platforms, call reporting, analytics, Monitor, Whisper, there's really a lot that we're advancing. I think that the most important part and our primary target right now is still educating users and potential new customers, because we could keep advancing, but if we're not keeping up with people having knowledge about what's really out there, I mean, it's going to be too much, right?
Yeah. So if you're talking about the rolling out an organization, what are some of the biggest pitfalls you saw, over your experience? Like, where do you see common mistakes people make when they're trying to roll out, new telephone system in their company? Where you see, is it education piece what you just mentioned, or is it lack of training? Where you see the biggest mistakes are made that people don't think is a very successful project because they missed a couple of steps?
Yeah, so by the time we're done with them, it's not a non-successful project. But where we see most of the hurdles in getting people to the end game is, teaching them how a common system really should work in today's technology. I understand pretty intuitively how customers like to be handled on the telephone system. And sometimes with, older heads, as we call them, they're so used to it working in a specific way that they're completely adamantly opposed to doing it a new way. And oftentimes it's about teaching customers new ways of being able to do things. And it's just that, instead of pushing this button, you have to push this button. And instead of, routing the call this way, we want to have this type of greeting. So usually it's just a matter of, educating them on, best practices, and then, seeing it through to the end game. Oftentimes we face people that don't want to have like an automated call attendant. They're like, oh, I got to get to the receptionist. Or they say to us that, I don't want somebody waiting in the queue for more than a minute. Right? Which is sort of nonsense, in my opinion. Because most people have an appetite for waiting a little bit longer, as long as you're holding their hand through the process. As long as you tell them, hey, just wait on the line. You're going to get a representative. Don't hang up. Listen to my hold music. Listen to my greetings. But some older heads want to say, well, no, if somebody's been waiting a minute, I failed them, and it's not going to be good. Send them to voicemail. So it's a matter of convincing them that reaching a real person in 2 minutes is better for the customer than getting to your voicemail in 1 minute. Right? So it really is just a matter of, getting them to understand and go along with it. And then by the time that they're done, it's usually like their mind is blown and they're like, this is amazing and never thought I could work this way. And customer satisfaction and attrition with hosted PBX is through the roof.
Yeah. Or other way around is, I saw that option used recently, is give customer a choice. Do they want to stay on a hold, or do they want to be contacted by phone number or email? Give them a choice. And keep them in a hold that way, right? So you're providing options there. If somebody still wishes to stay on a line and hold for you for a couple of minutes, leave it up to them how they want to do the business.
Yeah, definitely. We do that in queues. Sometimes in the IVR, we give them an option. If you want to reach a representative, press this or dial direct. But in a queue, you have an option to sort of bail out, right? Like if you're sick of waiting, just press 0 and you can leave us a message or reach a receptionist or something. So that's the thing. There's 1,000 ways to be able to use the system. So usually we'll feel them out, see what their primary objective is, what their concerns are, and then build something that sort of works for what the needs are. That again comes into the flexibility of a hosted PBX that you traditionally can't do with an on-premise system.
Yeah. Well, one of the, I think I know a little bit of answer for that, but I wanted to run by you. What are your thoughts on one of the common question you probably get all the time is, if my internet is down, my phone system is not working, right?
Yeah.
So if you can talk about that advances in a Canadian, internet service provider market, what do you see? How do you guys approach it? How do you guys explain to people that there's options out there, and how far we got in, it came from advancement on an internet, market that, how often that happens. So how do you approach that?
So you hit the nail right on the head with one of the biggest objections to a VoIP system or a hosted PBX. So it's commonly known as VoIP. I call it a hosted PBX because the phone system in the cloud, but VoIP, we'll talk about VoIP for a second. So, I don't want to get sued with my next statement, but I am going to tell you, back in the day, when Vonage first brought voice over internet to residential customers, they sort of bastardized the industry. And the primary reason why is because they had this great technology that allowed people to be able to use VoIP, but what they didn't look after was the network, because it's not just about having a good internet connection or even a decent internet connection. It really is about the local network, ensuring that you have what we call an ideal network configuration. So what Vonage did was they deployed all these devices all over Canada, and gave people the super cheap internet service. And ultimately what happened was a lot of people were very disappointed with the quality of the call, hence giving a very poor reputation to VoIP. And it is rightly so. Some of the objections that you get are, well, what happens if my power goes out? What happens if my internet goes out? Absolutely valid points, but now we have solutions to be able to ease those concerns. Specifically my business, what we offer for incoming calls is that the incoming call never even makes it to your office. Specifically, it makes it to the IVR or to the call queue or somewhere in the phone system on our platform, which doesn't have power outages and doesn't have internet outages. And then from there, we route the call to where your destination is. Our system is smart enough to know if your phone is registered to our platform. So in the event that you lose power or you lose internet, our system will know that, and we have redundancies in place to route calls to alternative locations. So as an example, I have my phone on my desk here. If my power went out, well, my phone would just start ringing on my iPhone instead. So this way, I'm not going to miss the outgoing call. The other solution that we have with the smartphone is for outgoing calls. In the event that the internet went out or the power went out on my desk, I can use my cloud soft phone to be able to make and receive calls on the same extension that I have at my desk.
Nice.
So call reports, call recording, they all work the same way, and it works on LTE. So from a redundancy standpoint, in the very rare occurrence where you lose internet service, it's covered. You're covered. You can add additional outside representatives on the fly through our web portal. But from the standpoint of, call or quality issues is totally different animal, which is really, in my opinion, 90% of the problem. Most businesses are not losing internet all the time. I mean, it is not impossible that they may lose internet, they may lose power, but it's very infrequent. Where most businesses actually experience issues with voice over internet is the quality of their network, the proper setup, ensuring that there are prioritization for specific packets that happen on the network. And that is what most people miss. Quite frankly, they think they just, I'll plug in my VoIP phone, everything's good. But then they're a media company that's sending 500 megabyte files over the internet on a 5 meg up connection and wonder why their phone gets choppy.
How do you handle that?
Well, what we do is we offer, again, the white glove approach to understand their network. So more than just being customer service and support, we're actually very technical. So we start with the network. We want that to be the least of our concerns. So we'll actually get in there, work with their IT guy. If they don't have an IT guy, we'll work with, get into their router, have a look ourselves, or even offer them some options to be able to ensure that they can sustain a good quality internet service. And it's what we call an ideal network configuration.
That may be not a big issue in a Toronto area. Definitely, some companies, it's internet outages, or we talking about the power outage is not a big issue in a Toronto area. But if you're going a little bit rural area, a little bit north of north of Toronto, north of Barrie, that area, if you look at that, the whole landscape area, even eastern of Peterborough, that area, that's very common issues there. The power outages or internet speeds not available in a certain area. The solution you're providing that receiving incoming calls and handling outgoing call for these companies in that area is an ideal solution for them. So at least the business not being interrupted. If you're running a business in those rural area, for them is critical to have those kind of services which you just mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. I think that having any option for better technology in those rural areas is even more important, to be honest, than a bigger city, because they have to compete with the bigger city features.
Yeah.
And in locations where you have limited bandwidth, sometimes it's a challenge, but it's still not impossible to be able to use this type of technology, because even with satellite internet, people think, well, voice is never going to work on satellite internet. Well, some small adjustments to the MTU on your router, and you're going to be back in service, no problem. But ultimately, in low bandwidth situations, it really is about managing your bandwidth on the local network. It all comes back to your local network, and that's where Vonage missed it. Vonage really had a great opportunity to be able to do something tremendous with VoIP, but when they were only focused on their little device and not the actual network is when customer satisfaction goes down, and that's where we focus on.
So how often do you have to go educate people based on that, what Vonage did in the industry? You have to clean up after that and educate people and in the right direction. How often do you have to go and deal with that?
Every sales call. Every sales call. I mean, it's like not really all the time, but I pull out Vonage out of my hat quite frequently because it's a reality. I mean, it's not a sales gimmick. It is a reality. Some companies came to Canada and really they got tons of market share, and then they completely flopped because they were focusing on the wrong things. They were focusing on, gaining market share, getting lots of customers and subscriptions, but from the customer service and the support side of things is where they lacked.
I see. Interesting. So do you guys provide service on Ontario, John, or are you guys, province-wide or nationwide?
Yeah.
How far do you guys go in Ontario?
We're right across Canada. We provide, our primary core business is in Ontario, but we provide service in every single province in Canada. We do also provide services throughout the United States for our Canadian customers. So we have many customers in Canada that have outlets in the USA, and we facilitate their businesses there as well.
So what's next for MeloTel, your organization? Where are you guys heading? What's the plans? Where are you guys going with your game?
Yeah, so good question again.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
So tough to say, to be honest. I think that post-COVID or COVID is really changed the landscape of the business in a number of ways. So one thing is that pre-COVID, we had a development staff. We had a whole team working in office. It was a very collaborative environment. We were working on many, many projects. And during COVID, a lot of that was sort of put on cruise control or even into neutral. While we focused on just, keeping everything going and dealing with all of the different, situations that were coming to us. As for what the future holds for MeloTel, I mean, we're a private company. We fully intend to remain private. And I think that as we capture more market share, hopefully we'll continue to build our good reputation and just hopefully be able to one day compete with the big guys. We are still a small business. We've got probably about 1,200 endpoint customers across Canada, which is dwarfed by big companies like Comwave and others. But we are small, but we are mighty for sure. Some of the customers that we have are quite substantial, and I think that if we just keep doing what we're doing, ultimately it's going to work out quite well for the company.
Well, there's always strength being small. Being agile these days. Especially in a tech world, there's always strength. So what would you say, strength that you can always go against the big players? Like, is it being agile, or is it being adaptable? You can adapt to technology much faster than they can adapt to, right? So what are some of those strengths that you can easily go against the big players and deal with it?
So it's It's a good question as well. So, but relevant. So one of the things that MeloTel does is we are exclusive to businesses. So many of our competitors actually offer businesses or business phone service as well as residential service, which in my opinion is a dilution of technical support.
Mhm.
So what you end up with is a whole bunch of customers, but a very small support team. Whereas from day one, my priority focus has been on technical support and service, customer service. So one of the tremendous advantages that we have, not being a whale, is that we're overstaffed in most cases for technical support. So when somebody calls into MeloTel to make a change to their service or asks a question how to do something or a billing question, we're there to answer fast. And that's something that is typically very impressive to most. Whereas these big conglomerate companies that have, tremendous customer bases have to have, 100 team support staff, and they still have people waiting online for an hour. So that's probably one of our biggest competitive advantages. The other is that we're a wholly cloud solution. So when MeloTel first started, we had a data center, Black Iron. We thought it was the end all be all, that we were in the greatest data center in Canada, tier 3 facility. And then slowly that evolved into realizing that we didn't need that. So we distributed our entire infrastructure into Amazon Web Services, and it is serverless. So we don't have the overhead or the same overhead that a bigger organization that might actually be a CLEC would have. But we have no aspirations to become the biggest company in the world or even Canada. We're very happy with what we do. Our staff love working for MeloTel. I love MeloTel and my staff and my customers, and our customers love us. So we're very happy in the position that we're in and only see positive things. So that I wouldn't expect any really big moves. I think it's more going to be just, the sloth that just keeps on going, and we'll just, be happy doing what we're doing.
Very nice. So talk about yourself. How did you get into, this business? What you were doing before? If you can talk about your journey, what you been up to before, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I bought my first computer. It was an iMac back in 1995.
Okay.
And I made my first website about 6 months after that because I was absolutely obsessed with computers. And over my high school and some college where I became very involved in technology, I worked part-time jobs as a telemarketer, and I worked in the sales business working on the telephone. So I right away understood technology and telephones. And for many years, up until about 2008, 2009, I was working as a consultant in the IT space for call centers. So my responsibility was facilitating training and how to use the phones and how to work the dialing systems and so on. And MeloTel was actually formed in a very unique way. I had a number of consulting customers that I was working for, and they wanted to move from their traditional landline services over to a hosted PBX type of solution to be able to facilitate their telemarketing. And we had tried a number of companies, 4 companies specifically, to help us bring us out of the Stone Age, as we call it. And every single one of them flopped. The first company we brought in didn't have features and functions that we wanted. The second one we brought in had major call quality problems. The third one we brought in couldn't call specific places that we wanted. And the fourth one we brought in had all the problems. And what was really interesting was that majority of the problems that we had were all related to local network issues. And myself being in the technical space, with one of my biggest consulting customers, I said to him, I said, listen, let me give this a shot. I mean, we've tried this 4 times now. I generally get what these guys are doing. Let me try and set up my own PBX and see if I can make this work. So I spent, a month researching how specifically PBX translates through TLS using media encryption and, port triggering and so on. And I set up our router, what I believe to be perfectly. And we did a test launch with about 10 people in their office on a telemarketing campaign. And it was perfect. And literally, like once you have a resource like that, it's usually a very quick process to go from zero to hero. And that's what happened. Before we know it, that whole call center of 75 people were operating off my switch. And, we realized quickly that this is, something pretty awesome because it gave us everything that we wanted within that center. So what I did was I made it redundant, and they were operating off it. Everything was great. And then I pitched it to my second consulting client. And before you know it, MeloTel was formed as a corporation. About a year and a half later, I wouldn't say I quit my consulting job, but the relationship between me and my consulting clients changed drastically, and MeloTel was formed.
So how long you been running? How long has been around? So
MeloTel was formed corporation in 2009. I was a sole proprietor for about half a year before that, and I hired my first employee in 2010.
Nice, interesting. So let me ask you this: we all build a business in Ontario, and from building business, all these challenges. There's you get a scars to prove it, right? So you go through tough time. Not easy to do. That's why a lot of people don't get into it. What is the biggest obstacle you saw building a company and building a business? Any major challenges you saw, and if you got over it, what is the biggest obstacle came your way building a business?
So the biggest challenge that I had was keeping focused on sales, because I'm a very back-end first type of person. So I wanted to make sure that I had a really solid platform and all the features for everybody to come to, so much so that I didn't even care about signing new customers. There was a 3-year period of time when I didn't do a single solicitation for new customers. And it was mainly because we were building the back end. So, it made it challenging because we weren't boarding customers. I mean, I love to sell. I love to talk about what I do, and I can board any customer that I talk to. But the real focus for us was the technology side of things, because I wanted it to be something that when they come, they stay. I don't want them to leave. But I would say what most people would expect would be the biggest challenges, like financing or money to be able to do this, were not really the experience that I had, and not by any means because I'm rich and independently wealthy. We've never taken a loan. We've never seen outside money in any way. MeloTel was bootstrapped. So as I was working as a consultant, I was using those funds to actually, build
the business.
And being able to do it on a bootstrap is probably one of the biggest challenges, especially at the beginning, because the easy way is, well, go get a loan for $100,000 and like all your problems go away. But the hard part is trying to do it on your own on a shoestring. And it's hard in the beginning, but in the long run, it really works out well. Not being owned or indebted to anybody is a tremendous value in our company, and it keeps our costs low as well. But also building the vendor relationships was a challenging one too. There are many select channel providers that exist in Canada, and being able to find and get boarded with the right ones was really an important thing for us, because we kissed a lot of frogs. And when you're kissing frogs in the telephone service, that means that your customers are experiencing problems. So, once we find those channel providers that work well, that's who we partner with.
Definitely. I mean, those are the lessons you learn over the time, right? And there's no shortcut to it. You just have to go through it. You have to kiss the frog by the time you find the right ones, right? There's no shortcut. There's no bulletproof method to it. You just have to go through it. That's the only way you learn those things, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, good stuff. It's very interesting. So much I learned about you and your company. And definitely who's looking to have a conversation on a phone system. I think you're very knowledgeable in your space. They should reach out to you, pick up phone and just give you a shout and just have a discussion with you and maybe get a different perspective, right? So, at least you can walk them through, what they're up against, what problem they're trying to solve in the market, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what business owner doesn't like to talk about his own business?
Yeah, definitely. We lived through that for so many years, right? So definitely, that's always a that.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? How can they connect with you, and how can they reach out to you, John?
I mean, you could just Google MeloTel or go to melotel.com or call 1-888-MELOTEL. If you want to reach me directly, my email is jmeloche@melotel.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're everywhere. So if you're looking for us, you're going to find us. There's no question there.
Very interesting. Good stuff. When we send this video, I'll make sure you link, all the contact information is below the video as well. People can click a link and they can reach out to you as well, John.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, John.
Hey, it was a pleasure to meet you, Gurmeet, and I appreciate the time and giving me an opportunity to talk a little bit about my business. Like I said, that's what I love to do. And
beautiful.
I wish all the other small business owners out there the best during COVID, and hopefully recovery for everybody is an opportunity to really do something tremendous.
Definitely. End of the day, it's a businesses build the economy, right? Government plans not going to build it. So we have, as a business leaders, we have to push forward. We have to build the whole thing back, and we have to start growing again.
You got it.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, John. Have a good one.
My pleasure. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Take care.